The Freedom Off-Road 3-inch front strut spacers are a great choice for 2004 and newer F-150 owners who are looking for the easy and affordable way to give their truck a better stance. This kit will bolt right into place and give you 3 inches of extra height in the front end, making it the perfect mod to help you fit larger wheels and tires, or just help your truck look that much cooler. Just a quick note on fitment here before we dive in. This will fit 2004 and newer F-150s, excluding Raptor models and any that are equipped with Blue Cruise. Spacers like these are one of the most popular mods that owners make to their trucks, and that's because they're just, well, easy. They bolt right in with minimal fuss, and they give you a better stance and more room for beefier wheels and tires. With this kit installed, because it's going to give you that 3 inches of lift, you can run up to 35-inch tires on your truck without having to make other modifications. As long as you don't have really high offset wheels, you should have no issues with rubbing either. Now, the spacers themselves measure about 2 inches in physical height. However, it's important to remember that spacers like these are not a 1-to-1 ratio, so you are going to get that true 3 inches of lift up front. And since these just bolt right on top of your front struts, there's no need to mess with springs or spring compressors either, making the installation very straightforward. Now, installing these will take care of eliminating that factory forward rake that F-150s have, so your truck will sit more evenly front to rear, and that alone makes these worth picking up. Plus, having that extra height up front means you're going to have better overall ground clearance and a better approach angle. So if you are taking your truck off-road, these are going to help it be a little bit more capable, especially if you're combining it with larger wheels and tires. Now, clearly, these are a pretty simple thing, but it's important that they're made well. Freedom Off-Road has made these from CNC machined billet aluminum, and they're finished with a matte black powder coating for additional protection. And that black finish also helps them blend in when they're installed, so only the keen-eyed will spot that you have them. You also get high-strength bolts and all the hardware you need to get these installed included in the kit, so these will be plenty strong, they should last you a good long while, and they come ready to go right out of the box. As far as pricing is concerned, this kit is going to come in at just about $90, and that is really a great price. It's one of the most affordable kits available for these trucks, and it gives you the height you want with the build quality you need, and you really can't ask for much more. Personally, I'm a huge fan of anything that makes a functional and/or an aesthetic improvement for under $100, and these certainly fall into that category, giving you that extra height and a little bit more capability to go with it. So I definitely call these a good buy. Installation will get a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty meter, and you can expect this job to take you about 2 hours to complete. Now, it will require moving some bits out of the wheel well area and removing the front struts to gain access to them, but overall, it's not a hard process. And again, you don't need a spring compressor since you are not disassembling your front struts. Just remember that once you've got everything bolted back together, you should plan on getting an alignment done since you are going to be changing around the suspension geometry. With that said though, let's head on out to the shop and we'll walk you through the install process step by step.
For this install, you need a 3/8 impact and ratchet, a 1/4 inch ratchet, a hammer and pry bar, a 21, 15, 13, 10, and 8mm socket, 8mm Allen wrench, 18, 17, and 15mm wrench, adjustable pliers, caliper hanging tool, a clip removal tool, a vacuum pump, and also not shown will be a lift and jack stand. All right, today we're going to be installing a lift kit on our F-150. First, we're going to watch a quick video how to get you to this spot right here, and then we'll come back to install the new lift kit.
First thing we're going to do on our uninstall is remove these 2 brackets here that hold our brake line and our ABS line to the steering knuckle, and disconnect them from the bracket from the control arm up here to get them out of the way to relieve some of the tension when we remove the steering knuckle from the upper control arm. So we're going to use an 8mm and a 10mm socket to remove these 2 brackets here, and then a trim removal tool to pop out these plastic push pins here that hold the brakes up there. So we use our 8mm to disconnect the bracket from the ABS line. And then we'll use our 10mm socket to disconnect our brake hose from the steering knuckle. Now we'll use our trim removal tool to remove these plastic push clips here, and then one at the top. Next thing we're going to do is remove our brake caliper and our rotor to get those out of the way and remove some of the weight from the steering knuckle. So we're going to use our 21mm socket on the back of the steering knuckle here to remove our brake caliper. Now we can lift our caliper away from the rotor and then pull our rotor straight out. Now you want to hang up your rotor on some sort of a hanging device to keep the stress off of your brake hose. And now we'll just go ahead and pull our rotor off. Now we're going to go ahead and disconnect our tie rod end from our steering knuckle using our 21mm socket. Now with our nut removed, you can go ahead and tap the bottom of this tie rod shaft to tap it up and dislodge it from the steering knuckle. Now we're going to go ahead and disconnect our sway bar end link right here from the sway bar so that we can go ahead and lower our lower control arm when we remove our strut. So we're going to use an 18mm wrench to remove that nut. Now there are two vacuum lines connected together right here behind the steering knuckle itself. What we're going to do is just going to pull those off. Next thing we're going to do is remove this dust cap and the 13mm nut that holds the axle into the steering knuckle. But before you remove that nut, what you want to do is put a vacuum pump on the larger of the two ports that we just disconnected the vacuum lines for, because that will prevent some damage to the actuator that's inside the steering knuckle. So let's go ahead and get this dust cap removed and get our vacuum pump installed. Now you can use a pair of adjustable pliers or a small flathead screwdriver to get in here and pull that dust cap off. Now we're going to go ahead and hook up our vacuum pump, like I said, to the larger of the two ports back here. And you want to use your vacuum pump and pull it up to about 24 or 25 inches of vacuum. Then we'll go ahead and remove our nut. So using our 13mm socket, we'll go ahead and dislodge this nut. Now we can go ahead and disconnect our steering knuckle from our upper control arm using our 18mm wrench. Now we're not going to take the nut off yet because, as you can tell, we haven't separated the ball joint shaft from the steering knuckle. So to do that, we're going to use our hammer, and we're just going to smack the top of the steering knuckle here to dislodge that ball joint shaft. Now with it loose, we can go ahead and remove our nut. We'll go ahead and separate our ball joint from our steering knuckle and lay that off to the side. Now we're going to remove our two lower strut mount bolts here and here using our 19mm wrench and a 19mm socket. Now we can remove the three nuts from the top of our strut using our 15mm wrench, and we can pull our strut out. And now you can repeat that whole process for the other side.
So we're gonna get our spacer installed onto our strut first. So we have our supplied Allen bolts. You'll see a threaded section, 3 threaded sections with a recess. So the bolt's gonna go down into those threaded sections. We can start all of them. Now these are 8mm Allen sockets. So we'll grab our 8mm Allen wrench and tighten those down. These will actually be the new studs that go through the top where you tighten it down to the frame. Make sure those are tight. You don't want these loose because if they start spinning on you, it's just gonna be a pain to tighten down. Now this is gonna fit over the top hat of the strut. Now it does only go one way. There are 2 studs that are closer to each other. So just find the right orientation, get that lined up, and we could actually take our factory nuts, put them down into that recess and tighten them down. We're gonna grab our impact, 15mm socket, tighten those down. All right, now you have your 3 supplied nuts that will tighten everything down, but you can go ahead and do the same thing to the other strut for the other side. So now we have our strut with our new spacer. We're gonna get that in place. Slide it up our upper control arm. Slide that into place. So we're gonna come to the bottom of our strut and get our bolts in. Now you may have that 19mm hardware, which you took out. We have a 17mm head and 15mm nut. Just depends on what hardware you have, so what tools you'll need. We'll get these put in place. And get our washers and nuts threaded onto the bottom. Now I have my impact with a 15mm socket and a 17mm wrench to hold the head to tighten these down. We're gonna come to the top of our strut and grab our supplied locking nuts and thread them onto our 3 studs. And grab our 17mm ratcheting wrench and tighten those down. Now we can get our axle back in place. We just need to line up our stud and our gear. Get that coming out the front like so. Grab our 13mm nut, thread that on, tighten that down with our impact. We can also just put our cap on while we're here. Now we can take our vacuum pump off, just release the pressure and pop that off the back. As you can see here, this is as far down as our ball joint would go in our knuckle. So we're gonna get everything else assembled and put together and then lower the truck down onto a jack stand to put pressure on the suspension and lift that up so we can get that mounted. We can now reconnect our sway bar link. So we have our 18mm nut. We'll thread that on. Tighten that down for 18mm ratcheting wrench. We're now gonna get our vacuum on and reconnect that to the back of the hub. And then next we can get our rotor and caliper back on. All right, grab your rotor, get that back in place. That's just gonna thread one of our lug nuts on down here. Just makes getting the caliper on a little bit easier. We'll get our caliper back over our rotor. Line it up so we can reinstall our 2 21mm bolts. Grab our impact 21mm socket, tighten those two down. We just have our tie rod to put on now before we lower the truck. Slide that into place, thread on our 21mm nut, grab our impact and socket and tighten that down. So as you can see, we have our truck lowered now. We have our lower control arm on a jack stand. I did have to grab a pry bar, just go between our control arm and spring, just pry down a little bit just to get that started. But we do have our nut started down here. And grab our 18mm ratcheting wrench, and we have a 1/4" ratchet with an 8mm socket just to hold the stud to keep it from spinning. Go ahead and just tighten this all down. Stuck in there a little bit, no big deal. Of course, when this does get on the ground, this will pivot up more, so it's not going to be touching anymore. But now let's just get our two harnesses attached here. So we have our 8mm bolt and our 10mm bolt for our harnesses. Get those threaded in. And then we'll grab our ratchet with 8 and 10mm socket, tighten those two down. Now that you have this side all secured, you can go ahead and repeat those same steps on the other side of the truck.
And that wraps up our install of our Freedom Off-Road 3-inch front strut spacers for a 2004 to 25 F-150 without Blue Cruise and excluding the Raptor. And remember, for everything F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.